Good morning, everyone. My name is Wes, and I want to thank you for tuning in this morning. This is Tuesday. What day is it? May the 13th, I believe it is, 2025. Thank you for tuning in today. This is Coffee with Wes. If you've been following on here for very long, you know the routine, you know how we start off. And hey, listen, for just a moment, I want to just share with you the reason why I do this every day. And so Monday through Friday, do not do it on Saturday and Sunday. But I do it to kind of, for myself, it's kind of making sure I get in the Word every day. That's first thing. Secondly, I'm looking for something to help me as I go through my day. And so that's kind of my purpose here, is to just kind of share some thoughts that might help us as we go through our day. Now, it also parallels our Bible study for Sunday morning. It's usually the scripture that I use and try to pull some things out of it. So it kind of does double duty. But most of all, it's just intended to be a word of encouragement for the day. And so I hope it helps out. I hope it meets the need that you have. And of course, you can always scroll through and scroll by. But I do appreciate you tuning in. And I know we have several. I mean, I'm really overwhelmed or humbled, I guess is a better term, by the many people that watch the video. So I put it on the Facebook, on the First Baptist Church of Cutler's Facebook page, put it on my personal Facebook page, and then I also post it to my YouTube page. So there's several different platforms. Anyway, let's get started and let's get going on this beautiful Tuesday morning. I don't think it's supposed to rain today, but my, did it rain yesterday, right? It just rained and rained and rained. All right. Okay. Let's get started. So today's big idea is that pride can block our healing, but obedience to God unlocks God's restoration. So, sometimes we are our own worst enemy. Have you ever thought that? Has anybody ever told you that? And it's pride. Pride gets in the way. Okay, let's look at 2 Kings, and I'm going to begin in verses 10 and 11. That's our verses for today. But Elisha sent a messenger out to him, that's to Naaman, with this message. Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River, and then your skin will be restored, and you will be healed of your leprosy. But Naaman became angry and stalked away. Okay, stalked. That's a cool word. Stalked away. I thought he would certainly come out to meet me, he said. I expected him to wave his hand over the leprosy, call on the name of the Lord, his God, and heal me. All right, so let's unpack that a little bit. Let's look at a little bit of background here. So Naaman, who is the captain of the Syrian army, the army of Aram, Aramaeum, but it's Syria. He was a successful military leader. He was a prominent military leader. In fact, he was very prominent. He was very successful. I mean, he had it all. Life was perfect for him. He had everything that he could ever wanted. However, he also had this skin disease, this leprosy. We look at our life, or we look at other people's lives, and we say, man, I have everything. Everything in life is perfect. And that's the way it is. That's the way this life is. We have 100 things that are great and good, but there's always something. And that shouldn't surprise us, because that's the kind of world in which we live. But anyway, he had it all. He also had this skin disease, and this skin disease, whether it was full-blown leprosy or something else, we don't really know. But whatever it was, it brought to him shame. It was a big deal to him. It brought shame and also isolation. Okay. Then there's this servant girl who was taken captive from Israel on probably one of Naaman's deployments into Israel from Syria. And she is captured, and she becomes the servant girl of his wife. And so she offers some advice. She says, well, go see the prophet Elisha in Samaria, in Israel. Well, long story short, and it's a long story, and it's between verses 10 and verses that follow, previous, between verse 3 and verse 10. There's a lot of drama that takes place with the king of Israel and and all that. So you need to read that. It's great reading. But anyway, long story short, he did. He goes, he sees Elisha. He finally arrives at Elisha's home, and he's expecting, because he's a prominent person, right? He's expecting a lot of pomp and circumstance. He's expecting a dramatic, big deal healing. But instead, Elisha doesn't even come out to see him. Elisha sends a messenger to go out and see him. So that's kind of rude, and to Naaman. And then he gives him this simple instruction. He says, hey, go to the Jordan River, dip in the water 7 times, and if you do that, you'll be healed. And Naaman is very much offended. He's offended by the lack of personal attention. Naaman's pride and ego are hurt. And so he gets angry. He stalks away, because he doesn't get the personal attention. And on top of that, his instructions are to go and dip in the Jordan River, the filthy river Jordan. And he thinks to himself, there are much better rivers in Syria than in Israel. Why in the world? I could have done that there. Why did I have to come all the way over here to do something as terrible as that? And then on top of that, so there's 3 layers. He's offended because he doesn't get personal attention. He's offended by the instruction, and he's also offended by the simplicity of the task. Just dip yourself in the Jordan River 7 times. He gets angry. He walks away. Not going to have anything to do with it. So here's the application. Oftentimes we want God to move in big, dramatic, impressive ways, right? Man, we want God to, we want to hear the thunder. We want to see the lightning. We want to shake everything up. But sometimes, and I would say many times, God's instructions, I say almost all the time, God's instructions are very simple, very simple. And as a result, our pride and our ego, we resist that. But obedience to God means trusting God's way over our own expectations. This is what I think God ought to do, and this is what God is doing. And so I need to be obedient to what God is doing rather than expecting God to do what I think God ought to do. Here's the thought for today. This is the thought we're going to take with us as we go through our day. Our pride or our preferences do not limit God's power. In other words, God doesn't have to do things my way. It would be nice if he did, but he doesn't have to. However, true healing comes when we surrender our expectations and simply obey the Lord. And so that's the thought for today. True healing comes when we surrender our expectations and simply obey what the Lord has to say. Okay, folks, have a great Tuesday. In case you were wondering, the trash people have already come by and my trash can is empty. And as soon as I get done here, I'm headed over and I'm going to take it off the street and bring it back to where it belongs. So you all have a great Tuesday. Get started on this day. Make it a good day. And I'll see you again real soon. Bye for now.